Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to go over the Glock G43. Give a little bit of a brief overview, though there's tons of videos out there that already cover it. A lot of people are probably already very knowledgeable on it, but I do want to go over a couple of things for anybody who is considering purchasing one, some of the pros and cons of it, and different options for carrying it. So see here we have a G43. There's no magazine in it. Chamber is empty, and of these three magazines here, there's no rounds in any of them. So just to start with, the whole reason that I picked up a G43 was for a carry gun. My primary carry was a Ruger LCP. I liked it because it just fit in my pocket. I'm definitely not as dedicated to the task of carrying as I used to be. 15 years ago, I used to have a 1911 on me, along with either a Kel-Tec P380 in my pocket or a snub-nose 38 revolver. I've carried a Springfield Armory XD45 service model, which is the 4-inch barreled one. It held 13 rounds plus one in the magazine. Definitely had some heft to it. Those days for me are long over. But I also never really felt super confident with the Ruger LCP, or strictly having the Ruger LCP. I definitely would not want to get shot by a 380. But that said, in kind of the times that we live in right now, if something were to happen or go down, let's just say that I was in a grocery store and a gunman came in there. Now, I know that'd be a lot of people's worst fears. I think realistically, no matter how much we try to think of scenarios in our mind, the last thing that we really want to do is engage a shooter, especially if they had a rifle or even a larger caliber handgun, and all you have is this little pocket 380 pistol. Yes, I carried a couple spare magazines on me, but you're talking about 6-round capacity of a questionable stopping power load. I just never felt really good about it. So outside of that, I also had a Springfield Armory XDS 3.3-inch barrel. I did carry 8-round magazines in it. I do really liked that gun, and when those type of guns came out, such as that and the the Smith & Wesson M&P Shield, because the single stack guns were just super easier to conceal, because when it comes to printing and where I live, we are not open carry. I myself would also never open carry even if they permitted it, but that's just my own personal preference. So besides the height of the gun, how tall the buttstock is, which is usually the thing that prints the most when you're carrying a gun, also the thickness of the gun. It's that makes it harder to. I carried the Springfield XDS for many years. Again, the LCP was really the one that I really went to, but I just really started getting into Glocks, so I figured I'd go pick up a G43, because at the time I thought that was the gun that was most comparable to the XDS. So the Glock 43, obviously chambered in 9mm. It carries 6 rounds in the OEM magazines. Whether you have the flush fit base pad on there or you use the finger groove as offered by Glock, this does not increase your capacity. It only gives you 6 rounds. It just gives you a little something to get your pinky on when you're gripping the gun, versus having the flush base plate. You can't get your pinky on there. So when I first got this gun, even though it was a step up to 9mm, I was never super happy with the idea of only having 6 rounds in the magazine and 1 in the chamber. So I did a little bit of research and I came across these Vickers Tactical +2 extensions. As you see, besides having a much larger base plate than the OEM magazine, it also gives you +2 rounds. Comes as a kit where you get the base plate, you get or the base pad, you get the base plate, and you get a longer spring in there so it feeds reliably. So 8+1 in the magazine, was super happy with that. Carried it in the waistband holster at about 4 o'clock position. Never found it to be too terribly hard to conceal. As you see, having this slash cut here helps with the printing issue that you would see if this was just a straight going across. Had that set up for a little bit, and I saw some posts on some forums where people were discussing the G43 along with the Vickers +2 extensions, and somebody had mentioned in one post that what's the point of having the +2 if that's what you're going to carry, because you could have just gotten the 43X. Now, at the time when I picked this up, I wasn't super aware of the 43X. What I did know was that at that point it was $100 more than what I could get a 43 for. So didn't really want to spend that much money. Figured 8+1 was good enough. And then I started, after I owned this, I started getting into more of the Glock forums and learned more about the 43X. So come to find out, I know that the 43X and the 48 has the same dimensions as the G19. They're just skinnier. Obviously, the 43X also has a shorter barrel and slide on it, but as far as the height, the part that's going to print is the same. So I went and I took this gun with my G43 with the +2 Vickers extension on it, and I laid it on top of my G19, and sure enough, it was just as large. Now, granted, this little bob here, or the slash cut, helps with that, with concealing. But then the question, in my mind started coming up after thinking back on that post, and was, maybe I should have just gotten a G43X, because then I could use the Shield S15 15-round magazines. And I have 15+1 in the chamber. So what I ended up doing was going and picking up a stripped 43X frame. Granted, this has got the 48 slide on it, but I was carrying this, and again, this gun is unloaded also. No magazine. The magazine I'm about to insert is empty. With the Shield Arms magazine, it is the same length, with the exception of that little bit of bob on the bottom that sticks out from the frame on the 43X, but doesn't really make it a lot harder to conceal or anything. So switched over to this. Again, this is a 48 slide. I did go ahead and just pick this up from Big Tech's Ordnance, and I can swap the slides out in between them. If I want to carry the 43X, I will just pop the slide off, pop it onto this frame, pop in a Shield magazine extension, and I'm good to go. So that makes you wonder, is the 43 still a relevant firearm?